Welcome to the weirdest rock climbing class that you will probably ever take. Um, but as I mentioned in my first announcement to you all, this class, if you complete everything and get credit in the class, then you can let me know to put you on a contact list. And the next time that I teach this class in person, even if you're not a Fresno State student, I will send out an invite to you and you can join me and that class that semester in actual outdoor rock climbing. So won't cost you any money or anything like that. It'll just be an extended olive branch, if you will, so you can get the experience that you all desired. So I am hoping that people take me up on this experience. It sounds like that will not be in spring, but hopefully next fall we can make that happen. Okay? So let's go ahead and go through what this class entails. So to start out, who am I? So my name is Alex Clifton, and I have taught at Fresno State for 8 years, teaching lots of different classes. My background is actually in kinesiology, sports psychology specifically, but I started to manage the ropes course after grad school, and some classes became available in recreation, and since I grew up recreating outside, skiing, rafting, rock climbing, things like that with family, I was able to teach some of these classes with my background and my connection to the department, and I have stayed ever since and love every minute of it. Obviously, this is a unique situation, as I would prefer to be teaching this class face to face and taking you all rock climbing, but I'm hoping that most of you take me up on my offer, and we can do that in the future. So, that being said, what is this class going to look like? So, this class is going to have lecture series, okay, that are going to have topics to better prepare you for rock climbing in the future and give you a foundation of knowledge of rock climbing curriculum. The major topics are going to be Introduction to Rock Climbing, where I talk about the different styles of rock climbing, the different venues in which you can do that, and the different ranges. It's actually a very diverse sport, ranging anywhere from specifically rock climbing as what you would picture in your head to mountaineering, sharing a lot of the same skills. So that introduction to rock climbing will go more into detail of that. There's going to be a whole segment, lecture or lecture series on gear. And gear for rock climbing is really fascinating and has improved over time. And down to the shoes and the rubber on the shoes and lots of specific gear for this sport. So go into details of that. Also, fitness and recovery to rock climbing. This will be a unique lecture because rock climbing requires just full body strength, requires cardiovascular fitness, and the recovery is unique as well. So it's interesting. Rock climbers are fit and can usually carry themselves as fit in their daily lives by doing some skills, but someone who's fit does not necessarily mean that they can rock climb because it's such a unique set of muscle groups that we're using. And then the fourth lecture is going to be on belaying and teaching you belaying. And that's the act of actually keeping you safe while rock climbing. Okay. So each topic will have a lecture or a lecture series and a quiz. The quiz is easy and meant to be easy as long as you have watched the lecture. You get 2 attempts on this quiz, but there is a question bank. So some of the questions will be the same and some of the questions will be different if you take it a second time. And your highest score will be kept, and you need to get an 80% on that quiz. If for some reason you take the quiz twice and don't get an 80%, go ahead and email me and I will come up with an alternative assignment so that way you still get credit in the class. So these are your lecture-based information. As far as your skills and deeper learning, you have two options, okay? You can do a skills assessment where you will do a figure eight with a follow through, as well as something called a water knot. So you will watch a video of this and you will learn how to do this knot and upload a video of you performing these two separate knots. And watch a documentary, one of the four of the pictures that you'll see below, or an alternative if you have another, you find a different um, climbing film or documentary that you would like to watch instead, then you can reach out to me ahead of time and get approval for that. As far as the skills assessment is concerned, this is you're going to have to get a 10-foot length a climbing rope. You can get this from REI. It's like, I want to say it's like 33 cents a foot or something like this. So they'll pre-cut it to 10 feet for you. And this is what you'll actually use to tie the knot if you can't find access to a climbing rope from a friend. You can use a longer rope than that as long as it is thick like a climbing rope. That's fine. And just use the end of the rope. Or if you don't want to pay $300 for a rope, you can spend less than $10 getting a 10-foot rope to use. And you will also need 5 feet of webbing, which is also about 33 cents a foot. And you can get all of that from REI. There's details in the assignment on Canvas around that. And then you have, like I said, the documentary options. All of these documentaries have different aspects to them. So Maru is about climbing a mountain, and this 3 climbers and a group of climbers are working towards being the first to summit this mountain, and they're using their climbing skills, but they're also using some ice climbing skills, and it takes them a few tries to do it, and is famous climbers that you may or may not have heard of. So that's an option. That's a little bit more, it is climbing, but there's a little bit more of a mountaineering aspect to it. The Dawn Wall, okay, is with Tommy Caldwell and is definitely a recommendation of mine and probably my first choice of which documentary that you watch. And Tommy Caldwell, it goes into his life as well as the most challenging big wall climb in the history as far as grade of climbing. And he's a really fascinating climber, and his respect and in-depth and his entire storyline and some of the things that have happened to him, including things like cutting off a finger but still being one of the best climbers in the world. But definitely don't want to give away too much, but it's a really fascinating story. And the Dawn Wall is actually in Yosemite National Park and is this really fantastic, fascinating story. So that is definitely my recommendation. The next one over that you'll see is Valley Uprising, which is also about the history of climbing in Yosemite. So another in our backyard documentary. Okay. If you decide to do Valley Uprising, beware that there is a lot of cussing, and it is definitely not for children. But like I said, it's about the history, starting in the 50s with Royal Robbins and moving all the way up through today with actually Tommy Caldwell and Alex Arnold and some of these other famous climbers that come through, Beth Rodden, things like that. So it's really fascinating to watch that documentary series and see that history, since Yosemite is essentially the climbing mecca of the world, just right here in our backyard. And it's all about the first ascents of a lot of these major climbs and the evolution of climbing. This is another really fascinating documentary that I would recommend if you're okay with the cussing and language. The next is Free Solo, and this is a documentary about Alex Arnold, who is the first person to free solo El Capitan again in Yosemite, right in our backyard. The biggest chunk of granite that someone can climb, and what climbers all over the world, born everywhere, dream of climbing one day. And free soloing means he did it without any rope or protection. Definitely not anything I recommend. and not what we would be talking about in this class, but still a really fascinating story about something that took years to plan for. And what's also nice about this is the realization that these climbers do not just climb without ever trying it. He spends years practicing these climbs with a bunch of protection before he feels adequate enough to do this climb. So all fantastic. And if someone could find a woman-centered climber movie and lets me know what that is, that would be fantastic. But the reason I picked the majority of these is because they're based in Yosemite, which is in our backyard. There's lots of other neat climbing documentaries. And then you will just do a quick little summary and answer questions about these documentaries to prove that you watched them in order to get credit for this assignment. The other option, if you didn't want to do the skills assessment and documentary, is to wait and see if Metalmark, our local climbing gym, opens. So you'll notice that there is a picture here about the closures due to COVID and what this means. So right now, currently, as I record this, Fresno County is in the widespread, the purple. Some of you have probably seen this on the news. So purple is the worst score that you can have as far as the majority of positive cases, and that is currently what Fresno is in. The only way that you can progress to red is if you are in the purple category, but that you have red numbers for 2 full weeks. If you've had red numbers for 2 full weeks, then you are graduated to the red category. Okay, so we have had red numbers for a week, and if we can sustain those for another week, then we graduate to the red category. When we graduate to the red category, salons and gyms can open. Okay, now this is not at full capacity, and I don't know what this looks like because Metalmark still doesn't know what this looks like. But this could potentially mean that you can go and actually physically rock climb at Metalmark by appointment. So if you want to truly rock climb for your class, I recommend waiting a week and seeing what Metalmark opens, okay, and what that looks like. That's at 10%. If we can then drop to moderate numbers for 2 full weeks, which is hopefully by November, then gyms can open at even a higher capacity. And so there is still a chance with the progress that we've been making as a county that Metalmark will open and you will have access to it. So it is up to you. That's why I gave options. If you wanted to wait to see if you can actually have some physical rock climbing experience, or if you would like to get these assignments done, I understand. It's important to note that everything in this class is due December 11th, okay? So you can finish it at any time between now and then. So you do have time to play your cards and see if Metalmark does open. So if that's the case, for Metalmark, you will need to show proof of your belay card, so proving that you tested out and were able to belay, and picture proof that you did some of the climbs. You have one final assignment, which is a 1-page double-space journal about what you learned about climbing. So maybe it's the history of climbing that you learned in your documentary. Maybe it's some of the skills that I talked about. Maybe it's being able to actually go out and experience things at Metalmark. Maybe it is the hard skills that you learned about tying knots. So whatever the case may be, so what you learned overall in the class, okay? So as I mentioned, this is a credit, no credit class, and it's all or nothing. So you need to do every assignment. It's not a ton of work, okay? And you just need to pass those quizzes with 80%, and you get 2 tries to do that. And as far as your assignments, as long as you do the assignment, you should get full credit. So as long as you're not missing any major pieces to the assignment, you'll get full credit. Send me an email if you have any questions, and we can set up a time to talk on the phone or Zoom or communicate via email.